I just want to go into bat at the last 12 minutes of the show today for a fellow broadcaster who does not work for us. But to give you an understanding of why the platform doesn't take the Broadcasting Standards Authority seriously. The Broadcasting Standards Authority is a group of people who essentially impose a form of broadcasting standards and, if you like, broadcasting mores upon all of those who are responsible for radio and television in this country. Sean and I experienced their interest, shall we say, in our previous occupations as hosts for Radio Live. But they don't just look after radio, they look after television as well. And usually on your television screens or during, News Talk ZB or Radio New Zealand or one of the mainstream, shall we say, radio stations, you will hear advertisements saying, if you don't like anything that you for this, just listen to another thing, you can make a complaint. It's quite a laborious process, the Broadcasting Standards Authority, but essentially if you don't like something you've heard and you believe it to be in breach of some defined standards or principles that the Broadcasting Standards Authority publish every year, mostly around balance and partiality, and there's demonisation stuff there too. There is singling out individuals or unfair comment or blah, blah, blah. You can go and complain, but the process works on you have to complain to the broadcaster first. And if you don't like, and the broadcaster has to respond to you, and if you don't like what the response is, you can then go to the Broadcasting Standards Authority and say, these people are bastards, they aren't doing the right thing, they haven't actually confessed to their crime, I need you to investigate. And so a group of people, mostly, well, almost exclusively drawn, but not, no, almost exclusively drawn from the mainstream media, sit, mostly ex-people who've worked in the mainstream media, sit on the Broadcasting Standards Authority, and they prognosticate based upon the papers. Nobody appears for them that I'm aware in person, but upon the complaints in front, and they say, yes, this was fair and unfair. Well, the Broadcasting Standards Authority have just ruled against News Talk ZB's Kate Hawkesby and her comments about ethnic priority for surgical waitlist. Now, if you remember rightly, we talked about this last year, about this time last year, in actual fact, at the start of that last year, there was a series of news media stories, if you remember rightly, in which, yes, it was June last year, in actual fact, at which it was discovered that district health boards were applying what was known as an equity adjuster score in the Auckland region. And the equity adjuster score used 5 categories to place patients on the non-urgent surgical waitlist. So if you were waiting for elective surgery in Auckland, they had 5 categories to put you on. And if you remember rightly, they were clinical priority, in other words, do you really need this? Time spent waiting, how long you'd be on the list. Location, I don't know why it was there, but it was there. Deprivation level, so how poor or not are you, and ethnicity, all right? And what Kate Hawkesby said on radio, on News Tech ZB, in a discussion with her husband, Mike Osking, was essentially that Pacific Island and Māori people could get priority access over non-Māori and Pacific Islanders. Okay. Now, somebody complained about that. The Broadcasters Standards Authority intervened or took the complaint very seriously and have just come out with their judgment, Ben. And their judgment is this. Hawkesby reinforced or embedded negative racial stereotypes with her comments. She incited possibly harmful comments from listeners. she played into the stereotype that Māori and Pacific peoples disproportionately take up resources and are given undeserved special treatment in Aotearoa New Zealand society at the expense of other ethnicities. While not said explicitly, in our view, wrote the Broadcasting Standards Authority, the exaggerated and misleading nature of Hawkesby's comments had the effect of evoking this type of prejudicial bias, the BSA have said. And they have determined that she was guilty of a breach of the Broadcasting Standards Authority, ordered New Zealand NZME, who are the people who own the New Zealand Herald and News Talk ZB and a few other radio stations as well, to air a statement summarising their distinction, and they are ordering also News Talk ZB or NZME to pay their costs of $1,500. I imagine it's just past the costs in actual fact. All right, so that's the story. Now, that determination and judgment has just come out from the Broadcasting Standards Authority. Now, here's the issue. Hawkesby didn't actually say anything that was wrong. Māori and Pacific Islanders were given priority over non-Māori and non-Pacific Islanders on the equity adjuster score because of their ethnicity. One of the 5 levels of determining where that person was on the priority level was ethnicity. So if you were Māori and Pacific Islander, you got extra marks for that, and therefore you jumped up the priority list. Now, none of that is untrue. And she was saying in her comments last year on air, as I was too, this is unfair. People should be judged on their clinical need, and that's it, you know. And obviously by adding location, deprivation level, and ethnicity, you might well argue that Māori and Pacific Islanders were advantaged more than just being a Māori or Pacific Islander, but also because they're of their deprivation level. So you might argue that and location, Northlanders, for example, which is, you know, might well have a greater proportion of Māori in particular who are resident in their particular region. So it wasn't false what she said. It wasn't wrong. You did gain an advantage for clinical and non-surgical, and surgical wait lists as a result of your ethnicity. Nothing there, she said, was wrong. But here's the Broadcasting Standards Authority and saying, listen, we think she played to a stereotype that Māori and Pacific Island peoples disproportionately take up research. It didn't say that, but this is how the Broadcasting Standards Authority interpreted what she said in criticism of that equity index. She then said, they then go on to say, and she also played to another stereotype of undeserved special treatment in Aotearoa, New Zealand, at the expense of other ethnicities. Can I say just here, and then they go on to accuse her, quote unquote, of prejudicial bias. Can I just say, and it's really important to say to the Broadcasting Standards Authority, why don't you like the truth? Now, I understand that we are in a competitive world, but I will stand up for broadcasters who in actual fact have just reported a truth and then, having reported a truth, say this is wrong. Now, that isn't playing to a stereotype. She didn't make this up. She didn't reach out to a whole series of non-Māori people or people who might hate or dislike or disrespect Māori and say, hey boy, have I got news for you, as a deliberate way of chastising all Māori or Pacific Island peoples. What she said was, you shouldn't ration health care in this country on the basis of or having as one of the basis that ethnicity is considered a factor. Now, we don't know, because the equity adjuster score in the Auckland region was never properly explained, what level of ethnicity played in bumping you up on that list. We don't know. Was it 20%? Was it 10%? Was it 50%? We don't know. Or the deprivation level, or location, or the time spent waiting, or the clinical priorities. But there were 5. And one of them was ethnicity. So nothing that Kate Hawkesby said was wrong. You were advantaged if you were a Māori and Pacific Islander against, I don't know, a European / Pākehā or an Asian person on the same waiting list. If I was on that waiting list, for example, I didn't get a mark for my ethnicity. It got a 0. Oh, you're a European, it's a 0. If I was Māori or Pacific Islander, I might have got a mark up to, I'm just thinking, just disproportionately, I might get an extra 20 marks. Now, doesn't that bump me up the waiting list in comparison to other ethnicities? Of course it does. It's just a plain and unadulterated truth. But here's the Broadcasting Standards Authority deciding that they are going to chastise, fine, and publicly humiliate a broadcaster simply for stating a truth and for offending the ideology and the political partiality, it has to be said, of their august organisation. Which is a reason that the platform isn't part of the Broadcasting Standards Authority, because we'd like to tell you the truth without fear or favour, or getting fined for telling it by a group of people who don't like what you're saying and are determined to stop you.